Yes, people. Good afternoon. How you doing? Red pill filler on YouTube. I can't cover a multitude of stories just because I haven't got the time working most of the time. And what little avenue I do get, I try and cover what I cover, but it doesn't even touch the sides. And regardless of that, it does feel the mainstream media just want to project a certain narrative, regardless of what the real world is saying, regardless of how real stories are happening. It always seems that way. So here we go. Another round of proving that the narrative that it's currently about is a load of BS. Red Pill Phil on YouTube.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
Oh, goddamn hacker, that second time night that asshole's cut in.
This arsehole has cutting in to say the current narrative is wrong, disingenuous, and it's setting race relations back. That's why this arsehole's cut in. Thank you very much. This is something that I'd seen on a website I frequently go on. It's a website called disclose.tv. A big thank you to them. I do source a lot of stuff from them. They've got a lot of good admins that are posting a lot of good, intelligent stories that are worthy of debate. And this was one of them. Dated the 11th of August. A 5-year-old boy was executed at point blank range by a criminal thug while playing outside. You can't fathom it, really. You know, when you look at it, obviously the chap on your right is the alleged criminal, and the lovely innocent soul on the left is the young chap that was executed, gunned down, point blank range, without even knowing what was going on and the motive behind it. And for damn sure that there's nothing could have done to have deserved a point blank bullet in the head. You think of the family, you think of the loss, you think of the anger and the retribution that anyone would want if this had happened. What they can prove is that it wasn't a random attack. It was anything but that. Apparently, the chap in question knew the young kid's father. Whether they'd had arguments or what was going on politically in the background, no one can kind of answer at this point. What we do know is a black thug has gone out indiscriminately. Whether he's used a legal gun or not, I've no idea. But he's shot and killed an innocent young lad. The mainstream media don't want to talk about this. The only time I've seen it is on this website, and it refers to the local news that cover it. There's no mainstream that I know of that you may be able to inform it. And if that's the case, then I'll take it back. But what I do seem to see is that this should change the narrative, because news shouldn't be narrative led, shouldn't be politically driven in order to get an agenda through. It should be news. And we know that there's good and bad all over the world in all shapes and sizes, all colour and creeds. That is the narrative equalizer, if you want to look at it that way. For where you want to build a narrative about a certain race of people, it tends to do a certain thing. Then you'll find that there's other things that go on in other demographics that make you realise there's good and bad in everyone. So to then push the one knee and Black Lives Matter off the back of an incident which no one wanted to see, but then get everyone to acquiesce to socialist demands off the back of it, when in reality there's so much going on within the black community that the mainstream won't want to talk about it. And this is a clear-cut case. This would break the narrative of George Floyd simply because Okay, we can see there's failings within the police, but we can see there's just as much failings with black individuals that are rolling around their own community that you could argue pose more of a risk to the average black person, whether it be in this country or in America, than the actual police themselves. Because for damn sure, the police would have got this guy, they would have apprehended him. If you defund the police, you can't be doing that, can you? So this is where the logic doesn't stand up for me. So this is just one of two news reports that I've seen. We'll just play a little bit of this.
New tonight, a neighbor is charged with first-degree murder and being held without bond, accused of shooting a 5-year-old boy to death while he played outside. WR's Wesley Federa joins us live from Wilson after talking with a woman who saw this heartbreaking crime take place. Rosalia?
A neighbor did. She was sitting inside looking out her window, and she witnessed firsthand a little boy get shot in the head by his neighbor. We talked to her exclusively. She tells us she could not believe what she saw.
People don't run across the street and kill kids.
Sitting in this chair with a clear view of 5-year-old Cannon Hinnon and his siblings playing outside, Doris LeBret could not believe what she saw.
My first reaction was he's playing with the kids. And when I saw him just ride right up to him and put the gun right on his head and shot him.
She says 25-year-old Darius Sessoms shot 5-year-old Cannon while he was playing outside.
It's almost like seeing a movie and then almost it dawns you it's not a movie.
You're right there. Imagine how she must have felt witnessing that. That's something that she's going to have to carry that image with her for the rest of her life, and the whole meaning and the lack of understanding as to why someone would do that to such an innocent soul, do that to anyone per se, but a kid, seriously. Got to be wrong in the head. Now, we've got to flip it 180 here. If that was a white guy in this current climate and he'd done that to a young black kid, that would suit the narrative, wouldn't it? And we know that. It would be all over the news, and it would be a further excuse of why the black individual is now being oppressed. But there's no oppression there with that lad who felt empowered to go and take a 5-year-old's life just like that. All the aspirations that this young child had has now been flushed away, but it doesn't fulfill a narrative, and it can't affect the current narrative. So that's not news. That's manipulation.
LeBret says Sessom's parents have lived on Archers Road in Wilson around 28 years, and she's seen Sessoms over at Cannon's father's house before.
There was no yelling, screaming.
Cannon's siblings watched their 5-year-old brother get shot. LeBret says his dad, Austin, was close by.
Austin flew out of that house and screaming and picked him up. They'll never get over it.
Now everyone is left asking the same question.
Why would that make him go over and kill the kid is what I want to know.
Cannon's grandmother tells us they're happy to know Sessom is in jail, but they're still devastated, of course. A long road ahead.
Now, if we defunded the police, would he be in jail? Would the FF force be running over to America to solve this crime with their fake bulletproof vest or stab-proof vest? Would they be there in a shot to make sure that the black proletariat is going to end up being safe, looking after their own community? Are they really interested in that? Would appear not.
In the community. Gerald?
The boy was such a bright light. This is so difficult to hear.
Good words. A bright light. A bright light that has now been extinguished, blown out. Blown out by who? A thug? A maniac? What is it? What have you got to have in your heart and soul in order to do that? To carry that out, it's beyond incomprehensible. Here's another story. Same again. See how it's local news? There doesn't seem to be any major news outlets all over this. But if it would have been a white guy that just happens to support Donald Trump, and this happens to be a young black kid, imagine. False. It's so false. News is news.
And we begin with breaking news this afternoon. Within the past 20 minutes, we learned the suspect accused of shooting and killing a 5-year-old boy is now in police custody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Crabtree.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. WRL Sloan Heffernan spoke with the child's grieving family today. She's live at the scene in Wilson. Sloan?
Deborah and David, there is a lot of relief in this neighborhood tonight now that the suspect is in police custody. Neighbors tell us that they witnessed what happened here last night. The shooting happened at this house. The suspect lives right next door at this house. One neighbor across the street tells us that the two had dinner together Friday night and that the suspect was even over at the victim's house yesterday afternoon. Later on in the evening at around 5:30, that neighbor tells us that the suspect came running across the lawn, came up to the little boy who was on the bike and shot him in the head. His two sisters looking on. The question tonight, why?
5-year-old Cannon Hinnon loved to ride his bike and loved animals. His mother tells us he was always smiling and loved his family. Now the family is preparing for his funeral after they say he was shot in the head while playing outside at his father's home on Archer Road in Wilson at around 5:30 Sunday night. Police say 25-year-old Darius Sessoms, a neighbor, shot the child, and it was not an accident. The reason is still unclear. Police believe the suspect took off in this black Toyota Corolla without a front bumper. Cannon's family was too distraught to talk on camera. They just hope the killer is brought to justice.
Well, let's hope he is. I mean, let's look at it this way. If that was a police officer that had taken out a young black child, then that would, again, fulfill the narrative, and people, well, particularly the far left, would be more than satisfied with rolling that out. And that seems to be what is happening here. When the story suits them, that's fine. Never mind what might really knock a degree or two of truth or element of truth or element of balance of the story. Never mind that. Same again, this is something that is happening up and down the globe, innit? You look at it, I'll never forget, several weeks ago, this came up. If you look at the date, the 4th of July, this was around the time when we had all the statue purging, and, you know, even though black people were disproportionately getting COVID, it didn't stop them running all over the place and doing what they're doing. So while all that goes on, and while everyone had to watch statues being dragged by nooses into rivers, and everyone really agreeing with it and think everyone now being put on a guilt trip, this story come out. Man in his 20s shot dead at point blank range on North London Street as police appeal for footage from witnesses. I was in a stream with Tony Bugle talking about this, and the sad thing is, a friend of mine sent me this story, and he sent me a video clip that was attributed to it, or what he believed was attributed to it. Now, I've got no reason to disbelieve the friend that sent me this clip, because this friend who sent me the clip is probably one of the most connected individuals I know. So when he sent me this, then there was an element of truth. And if it turns out that it's not true, what I will say to it, it is still a real life event that was caught on camera, even if it's not attributed to this event. But in my view, I think I'm sufficiently satisfied to say that these two are the same. So when I played the clip with Tony, I obscured the clip somewhat because I didn't want to be getting a strike, and I didn't want people to be thinking I was trying to sensationalize. But however, I'm not afraid of showing the graphic nature. So what I've done, I've not obscured it, but I have done it to a point where it fades out before anything actually happens. So bear in mind, man in his 20s shot dead at point blank range. I'm surmising that this is someone's CCTV footage. Okay, see what you think. Two men, Watch, once he turns his head, watch what happens, the one in the cat. Yeah. Now, that was the clip that was given with this. And then before you know it, man in his 20s shot dead at point blank range. So this is not something that anyone should be hiding from. Need to talk about this. Why is this happening? Why is black on black crime being allowed to happen right within the community? Not only does it affect the black people concerned, as it affects this man, look at him, it's going to affect children, as you've seen in the other clip with what happened in Carolina. It's going to affect people who live in them communities, who just want to live a positive life. So now their area is blighted with negativity. Moss Side has seen this, Liverpool has seen this, Birmingham has seen this, but yet get on your knee. So it's an illogical narrative that is overtly disingenuous, and it's a shame. They're probably doing more to create a race war rather than improve race relations. But it is what it is. If you're astute, if you're critical thinking, if you can crystallize the narratives that's currently being played out, at least you stand a chance of not being hoodwinked by this blag narrative. So that's my spin anyway, guys. No doubt you'll leave your comments. Thank you very much for taking the time out. There'll be more content coming up. This is Red Pill Phil. I love you all.
I love you. 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 I love you.
Even the pissing haters.
I love you. 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 I love you.